The first time I heard the key in our lock at 2:30, I was buttering a skillet with my knuckles still smelling like seared steak and garlic. I had closed the hotline at the restaurant, walked home through Minneapolis air that cut like glass, and found myself too awake to sleep. The bolt turned, slow and careful, like someone trying to make a loud truth quiet. Tessa slipped in sideways, hair damp from snow or sweat, gym bag thumping the doorframe. She saw me, froze, then smiled like a trainer telling you one more rep won't kill you. One more rep won't kill you. Personal session ran long, she whispered. You should be asleep, chef. She kissed my cheek and tasted like cinnamon gum in winter. My phone, face down on the counter, buzzed. A notification I didn't ask for slid down the screen. Your Uber trip has ended. Eden Prairie Community Rec. The time said 2031 a.m. I stared at the bright rectangle like it had teeth. I'm Aaron. 37. I work the hot side in a downtown kitchen that runs too loud and too honest. I've patched more burns than I've had birthdays. I can tell by the sound of a pan how hot it is, and by the smell of butter when it's gone from nutty to wrong. Tessa's a barista with forearms like stories and a laugh that used to make me feel like I'd won a raffle. In the last year, she got into powerlifting hard, the way you grab a rope during a storm. Her trainer is a firefighter named Grant, who could have been printed off a poster, shoulders like a house frame, jaw like a threat, the kind of man middle school kids point at and whisper, "That guy wrestles bears." He runs something he calls Charity Strongman Starts on Sundays, beginner events to raise money for equipment and local causes. When Tessa began volunteering, she told me it was cold out there on the asphalt and I should rest. "Long days on the line, babe," she'd say. "Sleep. I'll send videos." I didn't hear the second part as much as I heard the first, "Stay home." I told myself to trust. Trust is like yeast. It dies if you scald it. But that night with the key at 2030, the shape of my trust changed. I stood in the kitchen, the house humming in the way old houses hum when pipes settle, and watched her set her bag down. 2 lifting straps tumbled out like sleeping snakes, a leather belt, a neoprene suit folded into a tight square, another belt, this one brand new, still creaking. "That new?" I asked. "Won it," she grinned, the way kids do when they tell you they made their bed by throwing a blanket over a chair. "Raffle at the gym." "Lucky." "Undo lucky," she said, and I felt that small pull in my chest, the one people call love, tug sideways. Sunday mornings changed color. She used to linger, coffee and the crossword, a blanket and my feet under her thigh. Now she was up before dawn, tamping espresso like she was angry at gravity, throwing her hair up in a bun so tight I heard a sound. "Early setup," she'd say. "We dulled the frame, tape lanes, chalk up. You'd hate it. Freezing." I'd offer to come. She put a hand on my chest. "Stay, you live on your feet. Rest is part of training." We didn't talk about who's training. I'm not a man who snoops. The line will burn you alive if you take your eyes off it. But phones were invented to break that rule. We had a shared Uber account because it saved us $5 a month. My screen told me things I didn't ask to know. On a Wednesday, while I was dropping pork into a pan that sang back at me, it buzzed. Trip started, Eden Prairie Rec. I knew that place. It's a municipal building that smells like chlorine and taxes. At 11,008 p.m., her ride started. At 2,000 c.a.m., it ended. The next morning, she left 2 coffee rings on the counter and a text that read, "Volunteering with Grant on Sunday. They're short on judges." "You cold on Sundays," I said, trying to make it sound like a joke. "It's Minnesota," she said. "Cold is our weekend." The first real piece of paper came in the mail, a white envelope with municipal printing that made my stomach clench. I sliced it open with a paring knife and read the words, "Night Access Surcharge," in a tone only city governments use, a chiding voice with too many forms in its pocket. It was addressed to our family account. We had old membership there from when we used to swim laps in the morning and pretend we'd keep doing it. Now the city had billed me for after-hours entry, auxiliary door, and emergency access override. $67 and change, due in 15 days. I waited for her at the table with the letter under my palm like a hot pan. She came in with her cheeks bright from cold and a t-shirt that said, "Move the Earth." She saw the envelope, saw my face, and did that thing where her eyes went slick like she'd just stepped on black ice. "What's that?" she asked. "Invoice," I said. "Night access fee for a family membership." "Must be an error." "It's your name," I said. "And our email. The line says emergency door key used. How would that happen by error?" "Grant has a key," she said, like it was explaining why rain is wet. "He's on the department. They do maintenance after hours sometimes. We help. Your Uber receipts disagree, I said. So does the time I heard you come in at 2:30. She lifted her chin. We trained. No one else is there. I'm not bothering anyone. You're married to someone, I said. That's not no one. She set her bag down. 2 wine glasses clinked inside. Plastic, cheap, like something someone bought because washing a real glass felt like admitting something. I knew what they sounded like because I stocked them under the bar every Friday night. She saw me notice. We toasted a PR, she said. In the utility room, I asked, sharper than I meant. In the weight room, she snapped back. I'm not having an affair, Aaron. I touched the city letter with my index finger. You're having everything but, or you're having one and you don't want to call it that because your custom leather belt says strong on it now. She laughed, short and mean. Oh, so powerlifting is the problem, not the 12-hour shifts where you come home smelling like other people's anniversaries and burn. It's not the plates that scare me, I said. It's the hiding. We shut up then because we heard our voices getting tall and we have neighbors who like to hear things. We sat on opposite sides of the quiet. She went upstairs. I took the city letter and put it in a folder with the Uber receipts I didn't intend to collect but did anyway. The folder felt like an extra rib pressuring my lungs. I tried to keep cooking. The kitchen is the one place that still makes sense to me when people don't. There's a list, a rhythm, a ticket, a plate. The hot side doesn't care about your bad day, only about your sear and your timing and whether you can carry 2 sauté pans in one hand and still wipe the rim with the other. Minneapolis in January is a masterclass in minding your heat or losing it. I hid in it. Until Sunday. The charity strongman starts, looked, to me, like a bunch of men taking their shirts off in 30 degrees and shouting helpful abuse while dragging a pickup by a rope. Tessa loved them. Her eyes changed there. She moved like she'd found a song her body had been waiting for. I stood in my coat and clapped with my palms burning. The second Sunday, a woman from the department handed out flyers for a fundraiser for new sandbags and a better yoke. The event would be held in the rec center gym, of course, on a stage that smelled like floor polish and youth basketball. Come, Tessa said. See what we're building? I'm always seeing what you're building, I said. I'm trying to see where you put me. I didn't say it mean. She flinched anyway. 2 days later, the rec center custodian sent an email to a general address, which landed in my inbox because our membership had that email. He wrote in a careful way, with words that stepped softly like they were on ice. He wrote to management and whomever this concerns, and said he had found 2 wine glasses, a throw blanket, and a used protein shaker under the stairs in the storage room by the weight room. He said there were footprints on the storage room shelving and a smell in the air like vanilla and smoke. He said the emergency door log showed entries at 11:47 p.m. and 12:52 a.m., and that these times did not align with any approved maintenance task. He attached a photo of the wine glasses and the blanket. It was a cheap gray thing with a snag in one corner. We had one just like it in our trunk. I printed the email and took it to the rec center the next afternoon. The manager was a woman named Lila who wore a fleece vest with a logo on it and the face of someone who had been taking complaints since 1998. I showed her the invoice, the email, the Uber notifications, my shaking hands. I'm sorry, she said. I'm sorry these kinds of things land the way they do. The emergency door key listings are supposed to be for staff and first responders only. We'll audit keys, we'll check logs, we'll shut down after-hours access until we find out who's using it wrong. He's a firefighter, I said. He is a first responder. Then he'll understand when we hold him to a higher bar, she said. And if he doesn't, his chief will. Will you tell him I came? I asked, realizing as I said it that it was a strange thing to want. I'll tell him the door told me, she said. That's better. That night, I made chili and didn't salt it enough, which is a sin in my kitchen. Tessa came home with chalk on her calves like ghost handprints. She stood in the doorway and waited for me to tell her I loved her. I did love her. I could have loved her and also not let our house be a place where lying wore boots. Those 2 truths punched each other in my chest until one sat down and panted. I poured us both a bowl. We ate in a silence that was not about food. We ate in a silence that was not about food. You went to the rec center, she said. You talked to Lila. She talked to me. Tessa set her spoon down. I don't want to lose you. Then stop moving so fast I can't find you, I said. Her eyes got hot. Grant believes in me. So did I said. I believed you when you said charity. I believed you when you said raffle. I believed you when you said sleep. I'm trying to believe you when you say it's nothing. The door doesn't." She slammed her hand down on the table. "The door didn't kiss me." "Did he?" I asked, and my stomach flipped like a fish. She stared at her knuckles. When she looked up, the truth was sitting in her pupils in a folding chair, waiting to be noticed. "Once," she said. "Twice." "How many times does it have to be before we stop counting?" I asked. "I don't know," she whispered, and I believed her. I also hated that I believed her. "I want to say I'm sorry," she said, voice going small. "I want to hear it," I said, and realized I wanted that more than I wanted chili. "I'm sorry," she said. The words were quiet. They were a dropped plate with no shards, just heavy and done. I slept on the couch. I could have gone into the bedroom. I didn't want to lay my head where the smell of chalk and someone else's cologne might live. The house had new corners in it. The key at 2:30 had done that. There was a kind of fury that makes men do stupid things with trucks. I had that in my chest like a lit piece of newspaper. I thought about driving to the firehouse. I thought about grabbing Grant by the collar of his hero shirt. Then I remembered I cook for a living. I babysit Flame. I know how badly you can burn everything when you lean in. I didn't go. I went to work and burned the steak properly for the man on table 12 who wanted to brag he'd eaten something that scared him. The fundraiser came on a Saturday. The gym was a bright barn with lines on the floor and banners on the wall from too many years. A table of raffle baskets sat under a sign that said, "Help us move more." Someone had baked bars that tasted like high school cafeteria. The podium was a music stand with a microphone that squealed if you breathed near it. Firefighters in uniform smiled that practiced Easy Way. Grant looked like an ad. Tessa stood near him and refused to stand near him at the same time. Her eyes slid off his shoulder like oil. They called for opening remarks. The chief spoke first and said something earnest and strong about community. The stillness in the room was polite. The manager, Lila, stepped up and thanked the donors and volunteers and the janitorial staff who keep our house safe and shining. I saw the custodian by the wall and wanted to shake his hand and also cry on it. They asked for a community rep to say a few words. I didn't know I was going to move until my legs straightened. My feet carried me to the mic like I'd been called into the weeds and knew only one thing: step up, calm down, plate. "Hi," I said, and my voice trembled like a calf on ice. "I'm Aaron. I cook downtown. My wife volunteers here sometimes." People nodded because it was easier than wondering where I was going. "I want to thank you," I said to the guys in uniform. "When someone's house fills with smoke, you run in. When my neighbor fainted on his porch last year, you walked through your own exhaustion and carried him like a child to a stretcher. You show up when we whisper, 'Help' at 2 in the morning. That's a kind of strength no barbell holds." The nods became a stillness that wasn't just polite. "And," I said, because the word sat in my mouth like a hot spoon, "I want to thank the people who listened to doors. The manager here. The custodian who wrote down what he saw. You kept faith with what a key means. A key doesn't mean you get to do anything. It means someone trusted you to do one thing." I turned to Lila and handed her an envelope that felt heavy enough to pull my shoulder. Inside were the papers I had carried in my chest for weeks: the Uber rides to Eden Prairie after 11 p.m., the invoice with night access surcharge, the custodian's email with the photo of the wine glasses and the blanket, and a printed list of the emergency keys the department held for that building with a note requesting an audit. I did not show them to the room. I didn't say Grant's name. I didn't say Tessa's. I handed the papers to the person whose job was not to burn. "Make the building honest," I said, voice low. "Please." Tessa stared at the floor. Her jaw shook like she was holding in teeth. Grant stared at me like he was waiting for me to swing. The chief's face turned a color I have only seen on meat. The mic squealed again. Lila stepped back to it and said something about procedures and trust and accountability that made me feel both smaller and taller. The chief took the mic, thanked me, promised a review of access, and, without saying so, promised that keys would not hide under any mat in his house. We left in the middle of a raffle for a gift card to a hardware store. In the parking lot, the air bit through my coat. Tessa walked beside me like she didn't know if I was going to turn or not. At our car, she put her hand on the roof and stared at the salt crust on the door. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I didn't have to do a lot of things," I said. "I didn't have to be quiet while you told me the dark was a charity. I didn't have to pretend the key at 2:30 was a ghost." "You humiliated me," she said. "I told the truth where it lives," I said. "If it humiliated you, that's the part of it you were holding." She put her forehead on her arm and made a sound small enough to fit under a stare. I wanted to put my hand on her back. I didn't. I put my hands in my pockets and felt them shake. We drove home with the heater blasting. The kids were at her sister's, high on cocoa and cartoons. The house was too quiet. She sat at the table and took her ring off like she was untying a knot. "Are you leaving me?" she asked, and the question sat in the air like a fifth-place setting for a person no one invited. "I'm going to be the father I promised I would be," I said. "I'm going to take the evening shifts so I can make breakfast and get them to school. I'm going to file for custody because a schedule isn't something you lie to. And I'm going to stop spotting you on lifts you do in a room I can't stand in." Her eyes filled. "I love you," she said. "I love you," I said, "because love isn't the part that dies first. I don't trust you. That's the part that lifts the bar." She nodded. "Grant is not." "Don't," I said. "He is what he is, and the department will handle his key. I'm not your chief. I'm the guy who gets up at 5 to scramble eggs with too much cheese because Mikey only eats them that way." "I want to fix this," she said. The sentence, a prayer with busted knees. "Then start with truth," I said. "Tell Lila what door. Tell the chief what nights. Tell me where the blanket came from. I don't need gore. I need to know where the line is and if you see it." The next day, she called the manager. She returned the emergency key she never should have touched. She told the chief she'd used it and why. She didn't blame the cold. She didn't say raffle. She said, "I wanted to be strong and I mistook access for permission." When she told me she'd said that, I felt something in my chest loosen like a strap. The department suspended Grant from his training program and pulled his after-hours access while they reviewed. The word held heat. Tessa stepped back from the Sunday starts. She started going to a different gym at noon with a female coach who told her in a way that made my throat hurt, that your deadlift is not your dignity. We split days with the kids, wrote it down, stuck to it like a training cycle. I took the evening shifts, made friends with mornings. I learned how to braid hair badly, then less badly. I learned that letting go is a pull, not a push. My hands ached like I'd been holding a bar too long and finally set it down. We went to court because that's what you do when love can't count on itself to be fair. I asked for primary custody with shared legal decision-making. It felt like lifting something in front of strangers and pretending it didn't weigh what it weighed. I told the judge about my schedule, my mornings, my kitchen, my oath to make the pancakes and the permission slips and the bedtime that keeps nightmares from getting big. I told the truth in a voice that shook and then steadied. The court did what courts do, looked for a place for the kids to land where the floor was least likely to open. The papers came in the mail and my name sat where I didn't think it ever would. People asked me if I was angry. I was. Anger is easy. It's a warm coat when the wind cuts. The hard part was stopping at the door and hanging it on the hook instead of wearing it to bed. I took it off for the kids. I took it off at the stove. I wore it to the garage sometimes and lifted boxes I didn't need to lift and put them down because the weight was real and honest and didn't pretend it was charity. Sometimes Tessa stops by to pick up the kids and stands on the porch with her hands in her sleeves like she used to when we were 25, and everything hurt in the right way. She looks down at her shoes and says, "I'm sorry," again, not because she thinks it will fix anything, but because she's still saying it to herself. I tell her the kids love her. I tell her she can be strong without anyone's key. In March, the lake thawed enough to look like it was trying not to remember ice. I sat on a bench by Nokomis and watched a man push a stroller fast like he was late for something important. In the distance, a siren cried, the way the city cries when it wants someone to come do the hardest work. I thought about keys and doors and how heavy it felt to hand a paper envelope to a person at a podium, harder than a deadlift, honestly. Strongmen say the hardest part is the lockout. For me, the hardest part was letting go and letting the building be the building. Letting the rec center have its own spine, letting the chief be the chief, letting the court be boring and slow and exactly what it should be. When I hear a key at 2:30 now, it's in my memory, not my lock. It reminds me what a door can tell you. It reminds me to make breakfast before the kids wake up so the house smells like love, even when everything is being renegotiated. It reminds me that the strength I want them to learn is not in their hands or their backs, but in the soft space behind their ribs, the place that says, "We tell the truth and we sleep." If you were me, would you have said something at the fundraiser or kept it between the three of us and hoped it faded? Where do you draw the line between holding on and letting go when the key turns at the wrong hour? If this story got you thinking, tell me how you'd handle it and stick around for the next one. Your thoughts help more than you know.